Irma, the dangerous. The Category 5 hurricane lived up to predictions, leaving a path of destruction. Barbuda, however, got the worst of the storm, with the eye passing directly over it late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning.
The island of Barbuda was once a Caribbean paradise. Now it is lost. Hurricane Irma has reduced it to rubble. Homes are unrecognisable. The ruins lie scattered, torn and ripped apart.
And so the Lord is saying, let all the nations now begin to worship Jesus in holiness. Worship God the Father through Christ Jesus in holiness. The islands in the Caribbean, where women dress the way they want, they dress with nudity, immorality, abortion. Now turn away from sin. This is the hour now to make gains on righteousness and holiness. And those that would hearken to this voice, you will see the glorious eternal kingdom of God. This is the hour now to shun sin, to reject sin, to have zero tolerance to sin, to refuse sin. Prepare the way, beloved people. Prepare the way. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. This is he about whom the Bible spoke, about whom the scriptures wrote, that the Lord shall send a messenger to prepare the way for the Messiah. Shalom. Woe unto those who have invested unto this earth, who have relied on the created things, who have worshipped created things, objects created by God, homes, the earth, work of the earth, property. He is saying that blessed are those that will now hearken to the requirements and the ordinances of the Lord, the righteous decree, the righteous requirements of God, the holy ordinances of God. women dress the way they want. They dress with nudity, immorality, abortion, the lasting, and what? There is sexual lust going on.
Jehovah Shophet, the Lord the Judge, he has spoken with me about a tremendous event that is coming to the earth.
When the Lord brings up this prophecy and people are running and then water begin to exude out and distress consumes the land, the water was coming full speed to flood everything else. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming, a wonder, high-speed flooding the homes. It's in the Americas. It is in the Americas, the islands in the Caribbean.
Breaking news, even as Texas struggles to get back on its feet after Harvey, another powerful storm, may pose a direct threat to the United States. Hurricane Irma is now a dangerous Category 4 storm.
And there's going to be some more suffering going on, beginning with the northern islands of the Lesser Antilles. Anguilla may take a direct hit. Conditions will quickly deteriorate tomorrow afternoon. Then we'll watch the watches, Puerto Rico, British and U.S. Virgin Islands. Those will become warnings. This is a major Category 4. Here's the timeline. Wednesday, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos will be on the northern edge with the Bahamas. But again, any deviation north and south changes this. So let's take a look at the spaghetti plots. And again, a tight cluster, which means they all have a real grasp.
Look at how well defined that eye is right now. That right there is a strengthening storm. And the National Hurricane Center is saying we're going to go up to a Category 4 yet again.
A significant storm now still headed to the BVI. Barbuda got hit overnight. No contact from that island now for 4 hours, not even radio contact. There's the storm, there's the BVI, Virgin Gorda, Necker Island, which is where Sir Richard Branson has a big estate. But this is from Barbuda. Barbuda, when it actually got hit, we got 155 mile per hour wind gust and the anemometer broke. We have no idea how much it went up from there. There's the storm. It's still 185, gusting slightly higher. I think we're going to see tremendous storm surge right through the BVI and the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Obviously, the big one that we're talking about here is Irma, right now going over the British Virgin Islands, causing incredible problems right here. The U.S. Virgin Islands as well, just on the south side of it. So going over the British Virgin Islands right now, it has been trending a little bit to the north.
As of 5 a.m. Wednesday morning, September the 6th, Hurricane Irma remains a Category 5 storm. Early Wednesday morning, the eye of the storm passed over the island of Barbuda and is now heading towards St. Martin. Later today, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico will see a close encounter with Irma. The massive eye of Hurricane Irma beared down on Barbuda early Wednesday morning, trashing it with howling winds.
That monster hurricane, the strongest ever on record in the Atlantic Ocean, slamming into the Caribbean already, turning deadly, ravaging islands.
church in the United States, the church in the islands, in the Caribbean, where women dress the way they want. They dress with nudity, immorality, abortion. Now turn away from sin. And so the Lord is saying, let all the nations now begin to worship Jesus in holiness. Worship God the Father through Christ Jesus in holiness. Prepare the way, beloved people. Prepare the way. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. This is he about whom the Bible spoke, about whom the scriptures wrote, that the Lord shall send a messenger to prepare the way for the Messiah. Shalom.
Packing 185-mile-an-hour winds, Hurricane Irma made landfall in the Caribbean early Wednesday, barreling into the island of St. Martin.
Now, I see something like a tornado, a cloud of tornado from heaven, from above the sky, hit and fume like a cloud, like a funnel of cloud. Now turn away from sin. Turn away from sin.
A que buscaran cobijo en uno de los 460 refugios de emergencia antes de la llegada de este huracán, que bueno, pues como vemos ya aquí en pantalla está entrando por este país. También precisa que bueno, pues es algo sin precedentes. Esto lo dijo en una rueda de prensa. Y una vez superado Puerto Rico, Irma, pues probablemente va a estar pasando por el norte de la República Dominicana, las Bahamas, el norte de Cuba y va a alcanzar Florida a finales de septiembre.
De hecho, la madrugada de hoy, estos lugares para irse hacia San Martín, donde causó daños importantes, y otro lugar que también se vio seriamente impactado por Irma, la isla de Barbuda.
Así es, en San Martín, bueno, pues los vientos llegaron a pues velocidades de 295 kilómetros.
Hurricane Irma ripping through the Caribbean, bringing death and destruction and leaving thousands homeless. In Barbuda, houses underwater, cars floating through the streets. Among the dead, a 2-year-old killed while a family was trying to escape. Most of the island left uninhabitable and almost impossible to reach. In St. Martin, homes with no power or running water. Businesses completely destroyed. Military planes sending emergency food and water. Thousands remain stranded. Puerto Rico was spared a direct hit, but raging winds tore down power lines and trees, smashing through Sammy's small restaurant.
Wow, eso fue como el generador.
Now he has no income, just as tourists are beginning to arrive.
Almost 1 million people are still without power. That's why they've come to central markets like this to charge their cell phones, find running water, and get hot food.
Just as the cleanup begins, warnings tonight, another major hurricane may be on the way.
This is just one of many businesses completely leveled by the storm. We're inside of a restaurant. You can see where the wiring has fallen apart, a tree completely blowing through the roof. Now with Hurricane Jose picking up where Hurricane Irma left off, residents here in Puerto Rico are getting nervous once again.
From the Bahamas to Cuba, Hurricane Irma is battering Caribbean coastlines with deadly force. The powerful storm pounded Cuba's northern shore with wind and rain, whipping trees, lifting debris, and leaving floodwaters and toppled palms.
Et bien, ça passait par-dessus des roches en haut, là.
¡Corre! ¡No corra! ¡Beato entró! ¡Beato! ¡Ay, mi madre! ¡Entró! ¡Beato! ¡Ay! ¡Ay, la agua! Señor, acaba de entrar otra vez el mar aquí donde nos encontramos, en el barrio Villaín y Viejo.
On the island of St. Martin, streets submerged. This hotel, government buildings, even the island's airport. Irma pummeling the U.S. Virgin Islands, home to more than 90,000 U.S. citizens.
It is really ripping right now.
On St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, neighborhoods are underwater. This car sits on top of a utility pole, and lush trees now litter the street.
And so too St. Thomas.
Cuba took a battering. It proved to be a cruel few hours for the island. Not only did Irma change track to smash into the northern coast, she also suddenly gained strength as well. 170-mile-per-hour winds caused havoc. And this is the British Virgin Islands. Virtually no home has been undamaged, infrastructure has been ripped apart.
People of the British Virgin Islands, this is Governor Gus Jasper. I come to you with a heavy heart after experiencing and observing the extent of devastation caused by Hurricane Irma. After consultation with the Premier, I have declared a state of emergency for the territory.
They've got in their hands, it's truly horrendous.
One eyewitness has described the BVI as ground zero. Another resident thinks it will take a year or more to rebuild. The hospital has also been badly damaged. On the island of Saint-Martin, troops now patrol the streets of the territory. This was one of the worst hit. 2 people were killed here and more than 40 injured. The island is jointly administered by the French and the Dutch. This footage was filmed by Marines from the Netherlands military. There are now 200 extra troops on the island, helping to deliver aid and restore order amid reports of looting. This is what it did to the Turks and Caicos Islands, though.
Hurricane Irma has left a devastating mark on the Caribbean. High winds, heavy rainfall, and a massive storm surge pummeled Barbuda and St. Martin. The storm also slammed Turks and Caicos, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. At least 10 people are reported to have died in its path.
What we experienced is like something you see in a horror movie. Persons were literally running from house to house, and we had cars flying over our heads. We had containers, 40-foot containers flying left and right. And the story that you're getting from most of the residents here is that the eye of the storm came just in time. Persons were literally tying themselves to their roofs with ropes to keep them down.
This is Hurricane Irma. This is what it did to us. We are at Pelican at the moment, and if I zoom in, I want to show you the damage. Look, all the trees are down. Look at this. Look at up here. Look at the room up there. They are gone. All the roofs are gone.
Hurricane Irma becomes most powerful storm ever recorded.
For all those that are created by Jehovah, those that are obedient unto the Lord, this is the hour now to pursue righteousness, the hour to make amends in our lives, the hour to trust in Jesus, to be born again. Being born again is holy. This thing you see, the church in the islands, in the Caribbean, where it is jumping and then dressing the way you want and worldliness. The church in the islands, in the Caribbean, where they are bent to modernity. They are leaning to modernity in salvation. Christianity, according to 2017 standard version, modernism and modernity, where women dress the way they want. They dress with nudity in the church, immorality is in the house, abortions are in the house. The last thing, and what worship has become a place where now there is sexual lust going on in the house. The Lord is saying that the genuine, the true worship experience that Jesus inaugurated on that cross is holy worship, holiness, righteousness. And that the Lord is separated from sin, and He requires of those that worship Him to also separate from sin. Now turn away from sin. This is the hour now to shun sin, to reject sin, to have zero tolerance to sin, to refuse sin. When the Lord brings up this prophecy and people are running, and then water begin to exude out and distress consumes the land, and people are running, the water is coming full speed to flood everything else. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming, a wonder, high speed flooding. The islands in the Caribbean, bring up this prophecy, and people running, and then water begin to exude out, and distress consumes the land, and people running in the islands, in the Caribbean. The water coming full speed to flood everything else. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming, a wonder, high-speed flooding. Water coming full speed to flood everything else. Now turn away from sin. Turn sin. Reject sin.
Et bien, ça passait par-dessus des roches en haut, là.
¡No corre! ¡No corra! ¡Pedro! ¡Pedro! ¡Ay, mi madre! ¡Entró! ¡Pedro! ¡Ay, la agua!
And this is the British Virgin Islands.
Prepare the way. Prepare the way. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. Prepare the way. Jehovah HaShofet, the Lord, the Judge, he has spoken with me today about a tremendous event that is about to take place on the earth. I see the United States of America, all of a sudden a phenomenon takes place. The Lord has taken me into the future. I've already lived that day. I see something like a tornado, a cloud of tornado from heaven, from above the sky, hit, and I see the dust that came up and fumed like a cloud, like a funnel of cloud. The explosion of that dust went up in fumes and joined with the sky, fumes of dark cloud, when the dust was now spewing this side, and then all of a sudden, water flooding. I see a tornado, a cloud of tornado from heaven, from above the sky, hit, and I see the dust that came up and fumed like a cloud, like a funnel of cloud. And then all of a sudden, it became water flooding, people running to the hills. And distress consumes the land. And a lot of running. It is shocking itself. I see the United States of America. There was a big panic. There's emergency care people announce, people get evacuate with microphones announcing. So this is what is coming. The church in the United States, the Lord is saying, now turn away from sin. Now question the immorality in the church. Now question the falsehood you see in the church. Question the false prophets. Question your false apostles. This is the hour now when the church has to make gains on righteousness and holiness. Holiness, righteousness. Prepare the way. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. Now turn away from sin. The water is coming full speed to flood everything else. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming. The United States of America, a wonder, high-speed flooding. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. Now turn away from sin.
Well, Hurricane Irma is currently between Cuba and the Bahamas. It's projected to hit Florida in the next 2 days. The storm carries winds of up to 150 miles an hour. It has already ripped through several Caribbean islands. CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joins us now with the latest. Okay, David, where is the storm going? What's the latest on the path?
So, the National Hurricane Center has now put out that they're expecting a landfall in the Florida Keys, and then it's going to move up the central part of the state, and then kind of move on off into Georgia and parts of Tennessee. You can see how much of a behemoth this storm is. That colorful area where you've got the tropical storm force winds, that's 500 miles across, over 500 miles across.
Wow.
The clouds on both sides, that reaches over 1,000 miles across.
That's incredible.
This storm is enormous, and it has only gotten larger overnight. So even as the winds have come down, the wind field has expanded, so it is no less dangerous than it was yesterday.
This is CNN Breaking News.
This is our breaking news. Look at that. A monster storm taking aim at the U.S. Florida bracing for what could be the second catastrophic storm to smash into the U.S. mainland in less than 2 weeks. This one even bigger than the last one, Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Irma is its name, a Category 5. It is 185 miles an hour, one of the strongest storms ever recorded in the Atlantic.
Here is the track, and this is what is very difficult for us right now. All guidance shows that it is going to make a hard right turn. This is happening sometime in the early morning hours Saturday. If it happens earlier, it is going to cut just along the eastern shore of Florida. If it turns a little bit later, it's going to slam right into Florida. So Florida certainly needs to be doing everything watching this right now. That said, if it skips just to the east of this, it's going to stay over water and probably go in towards Georgia or South Carolina. So we've been a lot of talk about Florida right now, guys. If you're in Georgia, South Carolina, you need to be keeping an eye on this as well, because it is very possible that the storm just stays offshore and goes in towards that area. We cannot tell at this point. We won't know probably for about another day and a half exactly when we expect to see that turn happen.
Well, one of the biggest questions, where exactly will the eye of the storm make landfall? As of now, forecasters say the storm will slam the Keys, then move up Florida's west coast.
Look at how well-defined that eye is right now. That right there is a strengthening storm, and the National Hurricane Center is saying we're going to go up to a Category 4 yet again.
You can see how much of a behemoth this storm is. That colorful area where you've got the tropical storm force winds, that's 500 miles across, over 500 miles across.
Wow.
The clouds on both sides,
yeah,
that reaches over 1,000 miles
that's
across.
That's incredible.
This storm is enormous.
This is CNN Breaking News.
This is our breaking news. Look at that. A monster storm taking aim at the U.S. Florida bracing for what could be the second catastrophic storm to smash into the U.S. mainland in less than 2 weeks. This one even bigger than the last one, Hurricane Harvey. Hurricane Irma is its name, a Category 5. It is 185 miles an hour, one of the strongest storms ever recorded in the Atlantic.
emergency care people announce people get evacuate with microphones announcing evacuate. So this is what is coming to the United States of America.
Take a listen here.
You are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Please evacuate.
This really captures the urgency, Wolf, of the situation, where police squad cars are now going door to door telling people to evacuate. This is now a mandatory evacuation zone. We're in West Palm Beach on South Flagler Drive, and they're going door to door. A lot of people here telling us they're going to ride it out. This is the final plea for them not to do that.
Attention. You are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Please evacuate.
And a lot of these houses here, Wolf, have pretty solid structures, and people think they can ride it out, but these guys are telling them, don't take that chance. Going door to door here, they want people off the roads by tomorrow, so they're trying to get them on the roads now and just doing it in the loudspeaker. I'll let you listen to them again as they go door to door, and sometimes they'll actually stop and talk to people who are happening to be out and who might stop and ask them questions. So, Wolf, I mean, again, the urgency here, officials have been saying this for days, but this is the point where they feel they have got to actually physically go to people's houses, go along their streets and tell them, get out now. And we're on the actual safe side of the Intercoastal Waterway, relatively safe. Palm Beach is over there. It's a barrier island. They're trying to get everybody off there now. But this part of West Palm Beach, even though it's a slightly higher elevation, they feel like this has to be mandatory at this point, too.
Hurricane Irma continues on the move, targeting the entire state of Florida. It is being called a worst-case scenario. Irma is a powerful Category 4 storm with winds up to 155 miles an hour. The storm is being blamed for 13 deaths so far. The eye of the storm is expected to move right over Florida. More than 1 million people there are under those mandatory evacuation orders.
Here in Miami, mandatory evacuations are underway for high-risk areas along the coast. For everyone else, it's being strongly suggested to get out of Irma's way as quickly as possible.
Is life-threatening? This is not a storm you can sit and wait through.
Residents heeding that advice, though, are sitting and waiting in long lines at gas stations, oftentimes to find the pumps have run dry.
I've passed 2 gas stations on the way to get here that were both empty.
For those looking to evacuate by air, American Airlines says it will wind down operations on Friday afternoon in southern Florida before completely canceling flights throughout the weekend. Authorities are urging people to board up and load up with gas and head out as soon as possible. They don't want anybody taking any chances.
The storm is massive, and the storm surge that's predicted will go for miles and miles. It is incredibly important that all Floridians keep a close eye on this incredibly dangerous storm. Do not sit and wait to prepare. Get prepared now.
And already the U.S. authorities have ordered everyone living in the very vulnerable area of Key West to leave.
In the Florida Keys this morning, a steady stream of cars heading north. As of 6 a.m., all tourists were told to leave ahead of Hurricane Irma. State leaders are telling people to prepare for the worst, saying they're certain the huge and potentially catastrophic storm will impact Florida in at least some way by the end of the weekend.
The storm is bigger, faster, and stronger than Hurricane Andrew.
Mandatory evacuations are already in effect for the Florida Keys.
Highways are jam-packed this morning across the state of Florida. At least 9 counties are issuing full or partial mandatory evacuations. Gio Benitez is leaving the Florida Keys now and has more on the race to get out. Good morning, Gio.
It's emergency care people announce people get evacuate with microphones announcing evacuate. So this is what is coming to the United States of America.
take a listen here.
You are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Please evacuate.
This really captures the urgency, Wolf, of the situation, where police squad cars are now going door to door telling people to evacuate. This is now a mandatory evacuation zone. We're in West Palm Beach on South Flagler Drive, and they're going door to door. A lot of people here telling us they're going to ride it out. This is the final plea for them not to do that.
Attention, attention. You are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Please evacuate. Hey, Hurricane Irma is approaching this area. The order of transmission is a mandatory evacuation order for all Bahamas.
Robin, good morning to you. We are evacuating live here on GMA because we are joining more than tens of thousands of people who are evacuating right now or who have evacuated already. As we are looking at these major highways, only two of them take you from south to north. We're talking about I-95 and the Florida Turnpike. When you're talking about more than 1 million people on the road potentially asked to evacuate, that's a lot of people, that's a lot of traffic. I-75 will take you west, so that's one other road that'll take you up through the west side. So we're only talking about 3 major roads for more than 1 million people. You could expect a lot of traffic, Robin.
More than 1 million people there are under those mandatory evacuation orders.
Here in Miami, mandatory evacuations are underway.
For those looking to evacuate by air, American Airlines says it will wind down operations on Friday afternoon in southern Florida.
CBS 4 News live team coverage as South Florida prepares for Irma. We begin with CBS 4's Ted Scouten live in Marathon. Ted.
Tourist evacuations here in the Keys begin tomorrow at 7 a.m. That is going to be followed at 7 p.m. by resident evacuations.
Mandatory evacuations are already in effect for the Florida Keys.
Highways are jam-packed this morning across the state of Florida. At least 9 counties are issuing full or partial mandatory evacuations.
It's at about 25,000 people have already evacuated the Keys. Tonight, mandatory evacuation orders in effect. Businesses boarding up. Thousands cramming onto US 1, the only way out.
We're evacuating. 5's a little too scary.
People in South Florida are running out of time to evacuate before Irma makes landfall in Florida.
I'm a student here in Miami. We've been told that we have to evacuate the city.
Especially in areas like the Florida Keys. They are under a mandatory evacuation order.
All 3 hospitals in the Keys are evacuating and will be closed by Friday morning. Key West International Airport will shut down later today.
A mandatory evacuation order is in effect for visitors and the roughly 80,000 people who live here.
Emergency managers are ordering that tourists begin their evacuation at sunrise. For the first time in 51 years, she's evacuating.
I'm not staying for Irma.
1.4 million people live in Florida's mandatory evacuation areas. Good morning. More than 700,000 people here in Miami-Dade County are under a mandatory evacuation order.
Gridlock has gripped roads from Miami to Orlando as tens of thousands scramble to evacuate. Governor Rick Scott has issued evacuation orders across the state.
In Fort Myers tonight, police have been putting out the word to those who live in mobile homes to make that evacuation order and to let people know now is the time to go.
The police was here and they said it's evacuation over here.
Fort Myers police spent the morning going door to door evacuating people out of Poinsettia.
This evacuation order is extremely serious. If you plan on evacuating, we'll have a list of hurricane-safe shelters on our website.
And coastal areas around the city, including Fort Lauderdale and the Florida Keys, are under mandatory evacuation orders.
In the Florida Keys this morning, a steady stream of cars heading north. As of 6 a.m., all tourists were told to leave ahead of Hurricane Irma.
It was one-way traffic on the interstates out of Miami today. In their hundreds of thousands, people here are heeding the warnings and leaving town. The administrator of Monroe County, which covers the Florida Keys, couldn't have been clearer with his instruction to residents.
Hurricane Irma, which looks like it's going to be a really bad one, is a storm of enormous destructive power, and I ask everyone in the storm path to heed all instructions, get out of its way. And government officials, I know you're working so hard. You'll never work like this, and I appreciate also your bravery. Property is replaceable, but lives are not, and safety has to come first. Don't worry about it. Just get out of its way.
Is life threatening? This is not a storm you can sit and wait through.
Residents heeding that advice, though, are sitting and waiting in long lines at gas stations.
And already the US authorities have ordered everyone living in the very vulnerable area of Key West to leave.
At least 11 hospitals and 142 healthcare facilities have already closed in Florida.
Of the traffic, but it's also air travel. More than 1,000 flights already canceled. Cruise lines forced to make decisions about ships with passengers at sea. ABC's Amy Robach from the Miami airport tonight.
Tonight, the scramble to safety on Florida's highways. Gridlock on I-75 south from Tampa.
This is what Interstate 75 looks like right now.
To Sarasota, all cars heading in one direction. And these cars stopped. One woman trying to get to Orlando.
Orlando was the only airport with flights available.
At the Fort Lauderdale airport, the mad crush to get out. So far, more than 1,000 flights canceled. American Airlines canceling all flights to and from Miami this weekend. Here in Miami, if you don't already have a plane ticket, don't count on getting one now.
People running to the hills, and this stress consumes the land, and a lot of running. It is shocking itself. I see the United States of America. There was a big panic. There's emergency care people announce people get evacuate with microphones announcing.
More than 6 million Floridians ordered to evacuate, at least 54,000 in 320 shelters across the state. This massive shelter is almost at capacity. For many of these evacuees, it was a desperate scramble once they realized Irma was on its way and they had few options. The line stretched for what seemed like an eternity, wrapping around the Germain Arena outside Fort Myers, the last scramble to seek shelter.
Are they going to let us inside? Nobody's giving any information. We need to get the word out. Hey, you guys are going to come in. We need to know.
For Gina Munoz, it's an agonizing wait. She can't help but think of her 2 grandkids.
How long have you been here?
In line here? Since 5 this morning. It looked like a very bad storm, and even though our condo would probably resist it, I didn't want to put myself in that jeopardy.
We came here about 5:45 this morning just to kind of get a head start on everybody. There was already people in line when we got here.
Gotta go up there in the line. Go in the line.
Jam-packed. I'm in the pet area. There's dogs barking, being well behaved. There's cats cowering in their cages. But it's a good group. I mean, it's just a good group of people. Everybody been there is just behaving, no rambunctiousness. It's just one big party in there.
This shelter here, we advertise it as 5,000, the capacity, and we're approaching that now. What we're encouraging people to do is go to floridadisaster.org, check with their county emergency operations centers for those links to open shelters so that they could seek it. But the thing is, time is of the essence. They need to get to their shelter, get there now, and stay there.
I think we're going to be staying here for 2 nights, maybe 3. You know, they really don't know where the storm's going to go, and exactly so we have no way of knowing.
Evacuees are crammed into emergency shelters across Florida, most at capacity, including the Germain Arena outside Fort Myers, where we met Gina Munoz yesterday as she waited in this agonizing line.
Right now, the desperation sets in. The anxiety levels flare up. Just one person, you're a great guy.
These are the lines. This is what I really want to show you. Just want to get something to eat.
An ordeal shared by thousands of families as Irma roars through. More than 500 shelters throughout the state took in evacuees. The need is overwhelming, stretching resources statewide. Evacuees tell us that the power is out and the building is leaking. But just hours later, Collier County authorities closed that shelter because the forecast for that area got worse. Other counties also overwhelmed.
Certainly no one's going to get turned away, but it is physically impossible to shelter the population that's in jeopardy.
Many here had chosen not to evacuate until Irma shifted west.
This is what is difficult, trying to get oxygen for her.
Did you ever expect that line would be this big?
No.
Tonight, Gina Munoz says she's fortunate. She and thousands of others have made it inside the arena, with Irma just hours away.
The reality, it may be that this is going to be days, weeks, perhaps months, depending on this event.
right across the Keys, packing 130 miles per hour.
Just look at that shot right there down US 41. You can barely see what's down there, right? The visibility's down to probably about 100 yards.
I don't have a radar in front of me, but I don't need one. Hurricane Irma is right over us right now. We are a little more inland, we're a little bit more protected, and we're a little concerned because there's a marina across from us right now, and I'm a little concerned about the projectiles, so we're gonna move back inside.
And look at this. You could really start to feel the wind and the rain coming down. I'm getting blown away here, so you know what, JC and Eric, we're gonna send it back to you. It's getting a little dangerous. We're gonna head inside.
If we can, I want to show you a little bit of what we're seeing out here just off behind me. Whew. When that rain hits your face, it really hurts, guys.
I believe right now I'm standing pretty much where the storm drain is. And you can see just how far I've sunk down into the sand.
Things have gone from bad to worse. We keep waiting for the winds to die down, and they just continue to pick up. It actually looks, and I'm not exaggerating here, apocalyptic behind me.
Completely uprooting trees.
Just pulled straight out of the ground here.
Watch the ferocious wind rip the roof off this apartment building. The torrential downpour flooding downtown, swallowing street signs. This hotel swamped, the city's financial district entirely underwater.
Like it did last time this happened. This is appropriately East Battery, Reach and water. I can feel it behind the building. Woo!
In Naples, further up the coast, water levels rose by 2 meters in just 90 minutes. Fog swirled around skyscrapers and roads were flooded.
This is the situation right now. Around Brickell Bay, the water from the bay has started to go inside the buildings, the lobby of the buildings.
But it's really pretty dangerous outside, to be honest with you. Nobody should be out. Nobody.
All of a sudden now, I see something like a tornado, a cloud of tornado from heaven, from above the sky, hit and fumed like a cloud, like a funnel of cloud. And then all of a sudden, it became water flooding, people running to the hills. But now look, I see something like a tornado, a cloud of tornado from heaven, from above the sky, hit that soil, and I see the dust. I do not know whether it is the dust that came up and fumed like a cloud, like a funnel of cloud. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming. A wonder in the United States of America, all of a sudden, out of the ground gushes. I don't know whether the cloud came from above and hit it first. It looks more like a cloud came from above and hit the place where the are. But out of the ground gushes dust, black dust, and a lot of running begins. It is shocking itself. A lot of dust. So the Lord put me already there. The Lord has taken me to the future. Already lived that day. So we begin to run. I begin to run also for my life. There was a big panic. We were running for our lives. And as we were running, as the dust was coming our way from that place where the trees were, was the hill there, the settlement. When the big cloud from above came and hit the soil, a huge black dust and columns and waves of black dust began to float towards us. We began to run away. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming. A wonder in the United States of America.
This morning, we are getting our first glimpse at the devastation in the lower Keys after Irma stormed through with 130-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Boats on the roads, cars buried under sand, store windows blown out, houses barely standing, debris everywhere. Residents advised to boil drinking water. As Irma came roaring in, these two storm chasers tried to measure the wind speeds, unable to hold their ground. Transformers igniting. Trying to drive from Miami to the Keys overnight, we got a first-hand look at the devastation Irma left behind.
It's a tree down right there, wow. None of the streetlights are working. All the power's out. So everyone has to drive very carefully. Thankfully, there aren't many people on the road at 3 o'clock in the morning.
In Key Largo, David Kay choosing not to evacuate, documenting Irma as she moved in, watching his property engulfed from the storm surge.
We're doing all right, we're survived.
This morning, the painful process of cleaning up.
That's our sign. That's our street.
But just feet behind him, a tornado swoops by, pushing him down the street. Now marching north, Irma is leaving behind a path of destruction, uprooting trees, blocking roads, and ripping apart houses. And though the eye is staying west, Florida's east coast is also facing the hurricane's force. In Miami, parts of downtown are completely submerged. Nearly 100-mile-an-hour winds knocking down construction cranes on top of high-rises and tearing the roof off of this building.
My heart goes out to the people in the Keys. I mean, there's devastation. I know for our entire state, but especially for the Keys, it's going to be a long road. There's a lot of damage.
With such widespread damage below, some of the Keys are only accessible by air. There's so much debris in the ocean, even reaching this location by boat can be dangerous.
Tonight, the National Guard deploying search and rescue missions into the Keys. Local officials say a humanitarian crisis is looming in the lower islands. Big Pine and Cudjoe Keys among those hardest hit. No water, no food, no phones.
There's a lot of shenanigans going on here.
They need fresh water, they need gas. Mostly they just need manpower to get clear passage through their yards.
It's not just homes damaged across the Keys. So is vital infrastructure, roads and bridges. Repairs could take weeks, even months.
Irma hitting with fury, and now it's left a sea of destruction.
This is one of our very first looks at some of the damage, and it really does stretch neighborhood to neighborhood, homes in the water, boats in the water.
Tonight, this is the way in to the hardest hit islands in the Keys. Irma's path of destruction, obliterating homes, swamping neighborhoods, and likely taking lives.
It looked like a nuclear bomb went off.
Brian Holly rode out the storm, among the 10,000 who refused to leave.
It's going to take months, maybe years, get this cleaned up.
Florida and the damage done by Hurricane Irma. CBS reporter Meg Oliver is live in Florida City. Meg?
Ken, at least 6 people have been killed in Hurricane Irma, and the fear is that that number could rise dramatically. We are in Florida City. It's the last stop before you get into the Keys, and as you can see, there's a security checkpoint up. Nobody is allowed into the Keys right now except for emergency crews.
Neighbors help rescue neighbors in Jacksonville, Florida, as historic floodwaters rage through the streets. Irma's storm surge overwhelmed St. John's River.
This is potentially a week-long event with water and the tides coming and going.
Streets are also left underwater in Naples. Hurricane Irma first made landfall Sunday in the Florida Keys as a Category 4. A day later, mobile homes lay on their sides in Big Pine Key and roofs are missing. Some are thankful it wasn't worse.
See, I got the walls up, and we can always rebuild it.
Irma damaged some roads in the Keys, making them impassable. Residents hoping to get back home are forced to wait.
I'm not frustrated. I'm just upset at all this stuff that's happening to people, to us, to all of us. It's not frustrating, it's just sad.
From talking to the officials down in the Keys, the water is not working, the sewer's not working, and there's no electricity. So it's very tough.
Irma also caused devastation in Florida City, reducing buildings to rubble.
One of the biggest obstacles for residents returning home to survey the damage are downed trees like this one, blocking roads.
Downed trees are also a problem in Miami. Cars had to maneuver carefully around them.
People think it's back to normal. It's not back to normal.
People started removing fallen tree limbs in Fort Lauderdale, and crews began restoring electricity to the millions across the state who lost power.
Anxious residents have been lined up here outside this security checkpoint since 6 a.m. They are tired, they are hot, and they are desperate to go home. We are hearing from deputies it could take hours, it could take days before they let residents back in to check on their property. They have to make sure that the bridges are secure and the roads are clear. Ken?
Yeah, it must be so frustrating for folks that live there. The recovery is beginning, though, and we understand that the U.S. Navy is helping out. How so?
That's right, Ken. A U.S. aircraft is going to be stationed outside Key West to help with emergency services. 3 other vessels are en route. I cannot tell you how many emergency crews we have seen just streaming into the Keys all day long. An envoy of Army trucks came in, and even a fire department truck from as far away as Los Angeles came in bringing generators, and we've been seeing ambulances coming out. So there's just a lot of fear of what they're finding in there.
Meg Oliver live in Florida City for us tonight. Thank you, Meg.
Some more amazing pictures. Check this out. Boats blown onto land. This is in the Florida Keys. A massive storm surge swept the boats from their slips onto U.S. Highway 1. State officials are inspecting the 42 bridges that connect the Keys to the mainland. And the view from above gives a good look at the extent of the damage right now. At this marina, a number of boats sank. thanks to the crashing waves and wind. Small buildings were flattened by hurricane-force wind gusts. And in downtown Miami, construction cranes were left dangerously dangling overhead. At least 2 snapped 45 stories above the ground, becoming multi-ton threats to anyone below. Now, scientists will be studying Hurricane Irma for years.
The church in the United States, the Lord is saying, now turn away from sin. Now question the immorality in the church. Now question the falsehood you see in the church. Question the false prophets. Question your false apostles. This is the hour now when the church has to make gains on righteousness and holiness. Holiness, holiness, righteousness. Prepare the way. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. Now turn away from sin. The water is coming full speed to flood everything else. So there is a tremendous distress that is coming. The United States of America, a wonder, high-speed flooding. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen my Lord coming. Now turn away from sin.